Do you understand what an Australian visa is, and do you know what type of visa do you need? And when you are granted a visa, do you know how to read it and why you need to fully understand the meaning of your visa? Now in this video, I will give you some important points on Australian visa that can help you familiarize yourself with Australian visa and get an overview of the types of visa that you may be able to apply. Now this topic is quite large, so I'm posting videos in parts as we go. So hi, my name is Teresa Cardona. I'm a lawyer and a registered migration agent from Auspac Visa, where we help Filipino professionals, partners, students, families, trainees, and our kababayans to migrate to Australia. So if you are new here, please make sure that you click that subscribe button and hit the bell so that you can be notified every time there's a new video from me. Okay, so let's start. Now put it simply, an Australian visa is a person's permission to travel, to enter, re-enter, and or stay in Australia. Now, however, it does not mean that when you have the visa in your hand that you are free to enter Australia anytime and in any manner you want. Now, the Department of Home Affairs may still refuse your entry as they can cancel your visa while you are in the immigration clearance. So you probably have seen people who arrive at the Australian airport but were denied entry and returned back to their countries of origin. It does happen, especially when immigration found out or suspected that you are coming to Australia for a different reason other than what was stated in your visa. Now also, the Department of Home Affairs can control the arrival of people despite holding valid visa if national interests are at risk. Now, for example, there are hundreds of visa holders out there outside of Australia but could not enter because of travel restrictions due to COVID-19. Now, ordinarily, an Australian visa allows single or multiple entries, and usually it designates a specified time. Now, if a non-citizen of Australia does not hold a visa, then they are unlawful or illegal. Now, generally, there are 5 main classes of visas in Australia. Now, one is permanent visa, which entitles a person to remain indefinitely in Australia. Now, for example, subclass 190, subclass 189, subclass 186, carer visa, the second stage of partner visa, subclass 801, and others. Now, 2 is the temporary visa, which allows a temporary stay in Australia subject to the conditions attached to the visa. Now, for example, tourist visa, working visa, subclass 482, student visa, subclass 500, and many others. Now, 3rd is the provisional visa, which also entitles a person to stay in Australia first on a temporary status and then later, after meeting certain criteria, can proceed to the second stage, which is the permanent visa. Now, the skilled migration visa have several provisional visas. For example, subclass 491 provisional visa for 5 years, and it can lead to subclass 191 permanent visa. The partner visa, subclass 820, although classified as a permanent visa, is operating as a provisional visa for 2 years until subclass 801 permanent visa is approved. Now, the 4th type of visa is the protection visa, which is for people who have been granted refugee status in Australia. Now, the last type of visa is the bridging visa, which gives lawful status on someone who would otherwise be unlawful. Now, all of those visas are substantive visas except for bridging visa. A bridging visa is not a substantive visa, which means that when you are holding a bridging visa, it will not be possible for you to apply for a visa where it is a requirement that you hold a substantive visa at the time of application. Now, some special visas do not fall in the 5 categories. Now, for example, the special category visa 444 for New Zealand citizen, and then special purpose visa for the royals and airline crews, or maritime visa subclass 988 for seafarers. Now, unlike before, an approved visa can be seen on the passport because there was a sticker or a label we used to call a visa label that was affixed to a valid passport. Now, that system was changed to a simple notification of a visa grant, which is usually sent through an email or post mail, depending on your selected way of corresponding with the immigration. Now these days, it's no longer necessary for a person to carry evidence of the visa because whatever the visa you hold is also attached to your passport. So this means that even if you lost a copy of your visa grant letter, your visa details are still kept on the department's computer records. Now the Department of Home Affairs has an online system called Vivo, which allows visa holders and entities including migration agents and employers to seek verification of your visa and the conditions that you are subject to. Now the system, although available, cannot be accessed by any person without the consent of the visa holder. Now having said that, you as a visa holder cannot also access the system if you do not have the password or particular information required by the system. So there are not a lot of issues with the notification of grants other than, say for example, incorrect spelling of your name, the wrong date of birth, and failure to receive it on time. But those issues can easily be rectified and have no huge adverse impact on your lawful status in Australia. But there are a lot of issues with the notification of refusal and cancellation. And because a refusal or cancellation can impact the lawful status of a person in Australia, the Department of Home Affairs must observe the proper and correct way of notifying the applicant. If and when the case officer or the delegate of the minister makes a mistake in the notification of a refusal or cancellation, a person loses the lawful status in Australia. Now, the person can appeal on the ground of incorrect notification. Now, if you are granted a visa, the visa grant letter looks like this. Now, the visa grant will contain your name and your birthday and passport number. It will also contain the date of the visa grant, a unique number identifier, the visa class and subclass, and whether the visa permits multiple or single travels to Australia, and the date after which the visa cannot be used to travel to Australia, and the period of stay in Australia authorized by the visa. And of course, it's also contained the conditions of the visa. Now, with the conditions of the visa, they are all attached to your visa grant letter and to your passport. Almost all temporary visas have conditions attached to them. Now, there are two types of conditions. In every visa, there is a list of conditions that the case officer may impose, but there is also a list of conditions that the case officer must impose. So in other words, if the conditions are by law mandatory, it must be attached to your visa whether the case officer likes it or not. Now, for example, a family-sponsored tourist visa has a mandatory 8503 condition, which means that your family, if granted a visa, will not be able to apply for any other visa while on shore. However, the tourist visa SAFTA 600 has an 8503 condition too, but it's not mandatory, which means that the case officer may put 850 condition if he or she thinks it's appropriate. Now, in other words, in some visas and when the law allows, case officer can exercise their discretion whether to impose the condition. Now, before you get a visa grant, now case officers are required by law to assess whether you meet all the criteria set out by the law. Now, in terms of criteria, case officers assess first whether your application is valid. And if it is, then they will continue assessing whether you meet the relevant criteria. Now, in some cases, the criteria must be met by not only the applicant, but it may also involve the sponsor, the nominator, or the eligible relative. They must also meet certain criteria required by the law before granting a visa to the applicant. Now, other than those, there are some other requirements that must be satisfied for the visa to be granted. Now, for example, meeting the health requirement. Now, usually the health criteria can be done after lodging the visa application. However, it is not checked by the case officer until or she is ready to decide. So, health requirement has a validity of 1 year. Hence, it's best to put it off until the case officer requested it. Now, second is meeting the other criteria specified by the Act and the regulations, which includes payment of your Australian debts, if you have incurred any, and or providing a valid passport. Now, third is making a payment for visa applications, especially those second visa applications when applicable. And then fourth is meeting the requirements that affect the character requirement of the applicant, so including police clearances from all other countries where the applicant is spent or resided for 12 months, either cumulatively or continuously. And then fifth is that no other Commonwealth law preventing the grant of the visa. Say for example, Section 48 bar, or you've been refused or canceled the visa. Six is meeting the requirements on the location of the applicant at the time of grant, because some visa classes can only be granted at the same location where the visa application was lodged. Now, so for example, a partner visa that was lodged offshore must also be decided when the applicant is also offshore. So, however, recently, the Home Affairs has released some changes brought about by COVID, in which case, offshore partner visas could now be granted while the applicant is in Australia. So, you were granted a visa, but do you know when does it come into effect? Now, a visa is effective on the day it is granted, or on the specified day, or when a certain event happens. For example, when the current visa expires. There is only one visa that must be in effect at any given time, except in a situation of a maritime visa holder who can hold a tourist visa and at the same time a maritime visa. Now, once the visa is granted, it is effective and will remain to be effective for the period indicated in the visa. Now, but there are some events or circumstances that a visa holder can lose the visa. Now, for example, the visa can cease when, one, it is canceled, second, when it expired, third, when the visa holder does not enter Australia during the period or before the date specified in the visa, and then fourth, another substantive visa comes into effect or replaces the current visa. Fifth, if another visa is granted and then you're still holding a bridging visa, now that bridging visa will cease to effect. Sixth, the visa holder is deported from Australia. Seven, the holder leaves Australia and the visa does not have a return facility. For example, bridging visa, a holder would depart Australia without a bridging visa B may lose the visa. Now, the holder does not give information required to be granted on the immigration clearance and remains in Australia without having cleared in the immigration. And then lastly is the holder of a multiple entry visa overstays on one of those entries. So please note that bridging visa ceases when a substantive visa, if any, is cancelled. Okay, so to sum it up, that's the first part of the Australian visa and applications and all the important points that you need to know. But so in this video, you have learned the Australian visa and what Australian visa is, the types of Australian visa that you need or may have, or how to read the Australian visa and what it means to fully understand the meaning of your visa. Now, watch out for the next video as we tackle the issues of valid application and whether you can apply for a visa after a refusal or cancellation. Okay, so if you need any assistance, immigration assistance, please contact us. And don't forget to subscribe, share, and hit the notification bell. That's all for today, and see you next time. Bye.